The United States witnessed a significant shift in migration patterns, prompting both praise and controversy. The president's executive orders on immigration enforcement, combined with an increase in border security measures, appear to influence thousands of migrants to reconsider their journey. Reports suggest that many individuals who had already embarked on a journey to the U.S. decided to turn back, signaling a new phenomenon: reverse migration. This development raises crucial questions about the effectiveness and intent behind past border policies, the role of law enforcement agencies, and the broader consequences of tightened immigration measures. One of the most notable changes observed was the immediate decrease in unauthorized crossings. Some border agents noted that the visible presence of military troops at the border acted as a deterrent, leading migrants to abandon their attempts to enter the U.S. illegally. This shift challenges the long-standing narrative that many individuals seeking entry have no other options but to flee from dire conditions in their home countries. If they are now voluntarily returning, it implies that either their circumstances have improved or that stricter enforcement has made migration a less viable option. The rapid response by the Pentagon, deploying an additional 10,000 troops to the southern border, further reinforced the administration's commitment to border security. Beyond preventing unauthorized crossings, the new immigration policy also had a substantial impact on criminal organizations operating along the U.S.-Mexico border. Drug cartels, which rely heavily on human smuggling and illegal narcotics distribution, found themselves under increased scrutiny. Reports suggest that cartel operatives had to relocate or shut down drug production due to intensified law enforcement pressure. The fear of arrest among cartel members disrupted their operations, highlighting the effectiveness of targeted border security measures. Additionally, an elite Border Patrol unit was granted media access for the first time, showcasing their efforts in targeting high-risk individuals while also providing humanitarian aid to those in distress. This balance between enforcement and life-saving interventions illustrated the complex reality of border security. A crisis of security and exploitation. The U.S.-Mexico border has long been a focal point of American politics, but recent efforts to secure it have highlighted the true scale of the crisis. For decades, dangerous cartels and organized crime syndicates have profited immensely from human trafficking, drug smuggling, and various illicit activities, all made possible by lax immigration enforcement. The recent deployment of over 15,000 troops to the border, equipped with Stryker infantry carrier vehicles and advanced weaponry, signals a significant shift in national security policy. These measures are not merely about limiting immigration. They aim to dismantle the extensive criminal networks that exploit vulnerable migrants for profit. Illegal immigration has become an industrial-scale enterprise, with smugglers charging thousands of dollars per person to be transported across the border. Many of these individuals, once inside the U.S., fall into cycles of forced labor, debt bondage, and other forms of modern slavery. Sanctuary cities, despite their claims of humanitarian aid, inadvertently sustain this crisis by providing safe havens where trafficked individuals are exploited under the guise of assistance. The reality is that criminal syndicates are manipulating both these migrants and the political system, fueling a humanitarian disaster while enriching themselves in the process. The business of human trafficking, a multi-billion-dollar industry. The ongoing border crisis has revealed a deeply entrenched and highly lucrative criminal enterprise, human trafficking. The data and first-hand accounts paint a chilling picture of cartels and traffickers exploiting individuals for financial gain. One stark example highlights a migrant who paid $88,000 to be smuggled across the U.S. border, while another individual, likely a trafficker, crossed for free. This discrepancy underscores the reality that trafficking is not merely about migration, but rather about control, coercion, and profit. With cartels making an estimated $23 billion annually from smuggling operations, it becomes evident that these groups have turned migration into an industrialized business. The discovery of $200,000 in a trafficker's van further proves that this is not about humanitarian aid, but about profit-driven exploitation. Many of those who cross the border are not simply seeking a better life. They are under the thumb of traffickers, working under forced labor conditions to pay off exorbitant debts. These debts effectively enslave them in an underground economy, one that is not only criminal but also antithetical to American values of freedom and opportunity. the consequences of weak border policies, and the reality of criminal migration. The lack of stringent border policies has inadvertently allowed traffickers to operate with ease. Cartels have been exploiting gaps in border security, using primitive methods like ladders and vehicle barriers to transport people illegally. The statistics are staggering. 5,700 illegal crossings in a single day, compared to just 60 when enforcement efforts increased. This sharp decline in crossings when deterrence measures were put in place proves that much of this crisis is fueled by opportunity rather than desperation. Many migrants are now turning back on their own, realizing that trafficking networks are being disrupted and the risks are outweighing the rewards. Additionally, a significant portion of criminal activity is shifting from other countries into the United States. Crime rates in Venezuela, for example, have plummeted as criminals leave for more lucrative opportunities in the U.S. This contradicts a narrative that most migrants are fleeing violence. In many cases, they are bringing criminal elements with them. The exposure of a massive loophole, allowing 1 million migrants to enter the U.S. under dubious sponsorship programs, further exemplifies how trafficking networks manipulate legal frameworks for their benefit. The military response and its implications. The deployment of elite military forces, including the U.S. Border Patrol's BORTAC Tactical Unit, represents an aggressive stance against these criminal elements. This response has been deemed necessary as cartel violence reaches unprecedented levels, with reports indicating that the Mexican government itself is often unable or unwilling to combat these powerful groups. With the U.S. military prepared to take action beyond its borders, including possible incursions into cartel-dominated territories, the battle against organized crime is escalating to new heights. The implications of this militarization are profound. On one hand, it reinforces the message that national security is paramount, ensuring that the U.S. does not become a playground for criminal organizations. On the other hand, it raises questions about long-term strategies. Will military intervention alone be enough, or does the crisis require deeper diplomatic and economic solutions? Regardless of the political debate surrounding immigration policy, one fact remains clear. Without stringent border control and a targeted crackdown on trafficking networks, both the U.S. and Mexico will continue to suffer the consequences of unchecked criminal activity. Securing the border is not just about immigration. It is about dismantling a vast, exploitative system that has flourished under weak enforcement. With the U.S. military stepping in, there is hope for significant disruption of cartel operations. The urgent need for reform and accountability. The ongoing crisis is not just about immigration. It is about national security, human rights, and economic stability. The presence of organized criminal groups in the U.S. is an alarming reality that cannot be ignored. Activists who oppose law enforcement actions against these cartels inadvertently enable modern-day slavery, where trafficked individuals remain indebted and exploited. Sanctuary city policies, meant to protect migrants, often serve to shield traffickers and criminal organizations, creating dangerous environments for both citizens and migrants alike. The time for decisive action is now. Increased border security, workplace enforcement raids, and dismantling trafficking networks must be prioritized. The narrative must shift from a purely humanitarian discussion to one that acknowledges the exploitation and crime that flourish under weak immigration policies. Addressing this crisis with practical solutions, rather than ideological rhetoric, will be the key to restoring order, protecting vulnerable individuals, and ensuring national security. If left unchecked, the border crisis will continue to fuel human trafficking and organized crime, creating long-term repercussions for American society. The link between immigration and rising homelessness. The United States has long been a beacon of hope for those seeking a better life, attracting immigrants from all over the world. However, the ongoing migrant crisis has reached unprecedented levels, presenting significant challenges to the country's social, economic, and political fabric. The question remains, can the United States ever permanently solve this crisis, or is it doomed to be a recurring issue? Additionally, the crisis has exacerbated homelessness, straining already limited resources and social services in major cities across the country. The root causes of the migrant crisis are complex and multifaceted. Economic instability, Political turmoil, violence, and climate change continue to drive waves of migration, particularly from Latin America. The United States has attempted to address this issue through a combination of border security measures, asylum policies, and international cooperation. However, political divisions and inconsistent policies have made it difficult to establish a long-term solution. Each administration proposes different strategies, ranging from strict enforcement and deportations to more lenient pathways to citizenship. This inconsistency prevents the implementation of a permanent resolution, leaving the system in a constant state of flux. The increasing flow of migrants has significantly contributed to the rising homelessness crisis in the United States. Many migrants arrive with little to no financial resources, and the bureaucratic process to obtain work permits and legal status can take months or even years. In the meantime, they rely on overcrowded shelters, temporary housing, or in many cases, are forced to sleep on the streets. Cities such as New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago have witnessed an overwhelming influx of migrants, stretching their already limited homeless services to a breaking point. Public officials struggle to accommodate both the existing homeless population and the new wave of migrants, leading to rising tensions and social unrest. Additionally, affordable housing remains a major challenge across the country. The cost of living continues to rise, and wages have not kept pace, making it increasingly difficult for both American citizens and migrants to secure stable housing. Many low-income jobs that migrants often take do not provide enough financial stability to cover rent, utilities, and basic necessities. As a result, many find themselves in precarious living conditions or pushed into homelessness. This creates a vicious cycle where the inability to secure housing prevents economic advancement, further deepening the crisis. Federal and local governments have attempted various strategies to address these issues, but many solutions are short-term and reactive rather than preventive. Some cities have declared emergencies and allocated funds to house migrants in hotels, shelters, and temporary housing units, but these measures do not address the root causes of homelessness or migration. A more sustainable approach would require comprehensive immigration reform, economic policies that support job creation, investment in affordable housing, and international cooperation to stabilize regions from which migrants are fleeing. Despite these challenges, a permanent solution to the migrant crisis remains elusive. Given the dynamic nature of global migration, new waves of displaced people will continue to seek refuge in the United States. Without addressing the underlying causes, both domestically and internationally, the crisis will persist. The homelessness crisis, in turn, will worsen as more people struggle to find economic stability in an already overburdened system. For the United States to truly tackle these interconnected crises, it must adopt a long-term vision that includes humane immigration policies, substantial investment in affordable housing, and economic reforms that allow migrants to integrate more efficiently into society. Only then can the country move toward a future where both its citizens and new arrivals have the opportunity to thrive, rather than simply survive. Until then, the migrant crisis and its impact on homelessness will remain one of the most pressing and unresolved issues facing the nation.